Hey everyone, welcome back to the Diet Doc Life Mastery Podcast. I'm Joe Klemczewski here with Dr. Kori Propst. And today, because we're a couple weeks into the new year, we're going to talk about your New Year's resolutions. Are you keeping them? How many have dropped? And it was
Did you have any?
It's kind of a trend now, right? Like a lot of people say, nah, I don't need those. Those fail anyway.
Yeah, there is kind of a pushback now that I've noticed that they're useless. Don't set any resolutions. You know, they drop off after 6 weeks anyway. And I'm completely for and love New Year's resolutions.
Well, I created my own little system a couple years ago in that I would only create 2 for that reason. You know, if you make a list of 50 things, you know, as New Year's resolutions, what can you really expect other than for them to fall off the table? But I always create a personal and a professional, and I keep them now. You know, now that I just have those 2, and I make sure that there is an actionable step every day, and I keep them posted in view of my desk. So I don't take it lightly, Kori. It's not like, well, I want to lose 5 pounds. These are transformational goals I have. If there's one thing I want to change about myself, it's this: 1 personal, 1 professional. So I am keeping up with mine.
That's what I was curious about, is how you structured yours, because there's so many different ways to do that. I was wondering if you had themes that you were moving towards, or feelings that you wanted to kind of influence in your life, or you have 2 categories, personal, professional, and you said 1 primary intention in each one. Okay.
Right.
I did mine a little bit differently.
Okay, let's hear it.
So I did, my list is not 50 items long, but it's 20 items long because it's 2020. So I like that. I like to play with that. I did this last year too. Gretchen Rubin, who a lot of our listeners are probably familiar with, she has this happiness project, and she did something very similar. The way that I structured mine is, so I have 1 through 20, and 1 is 1 thing. For example, 1 is attend 1 silent meditation retreat in 2020. 2 is take 2 pictures per day. This is, I need the pictures for very important things. I need them for social media. I need them for memories. I need them to create the photo book that I like to put together for my mom at the end of the year. And I'm notoriously terrible at taking pictures. So 3, for example, was speak to 3 potential clients per day in 2020. And I moved up the list up to 20. And I think the important thing, like you hit on, Joe, is that they're not super overwhelming. They're not so out of reach that it would just take throwing everything in your life off the table in order to reach them. They're, like you said, they're manageable, and there's something that you can work towards every single day in some important way. Right.
And a couple of the ones that you mentioned there sound like phenomenal goals. And so I think in my mind, I've shifted away from, because I used to do that. I remember 20 years ago sitting at my desk every January 1, and I'm making a list of all the things I'm going to do that year. And those were, you know, what I would consider resolutions. You know, my 2 resolutions, quote unquote, that I do now, like I said, are really more personal development, transformational. So a lot of other things will spring out of those. But it's more of an attitude. I can mention them if you want to hear, so you can hear the difference.
Sure, absolutely.
I'll tell you my 2 last ones. I've mentioned this before, but last year I had 2, which was number 1, lead, exclamation point. That was in my office. Because I'm an introvert and I just like to let people have their space, autonomy, and all this. But within our company and within some of the projects I'm involved in, people look to me to move first, to act.
Right.
And I've resisted that for so much of my life that I finally said, well, gosh, you know, like, what the fuck? You got to step up. You know,
this isn't working.
You've got to be the one that's proactive, even if it's not in your normal nature. So I did a lot of things last year that were out of my comfort zone. And every time I was potentially stuck in something, all I had to do was look over there on my desk, and there was that word, lead. And that was my answer. That was my prompt to, okay, I've got the answer now. It's just lead, act.
Joe, in your defense, like, I think you were always leading, but it was much more covert leading. Now you are presenting the leading. You are making it seen and known in a way that you didn't before.
My mental graphic of it was always, I will lead because I'm out front, and anybody who wants to follow, like, jump in. But here's where I'm going. The train has left the station. Now I realize that's not necessarily good leadership.
That's so interesting that you say that. Yeah, I have a comment.
I need to go back with the pack, make sure everybody's okay, make sure they're all aligned, and then, form a more cohesive unit moving forward.
So I have an example in my own life right now how that literally is playing out. Ben and I were asked to be ride leaders for our cycling club. And last Saturday was the first opportunity to lead this group. Ben had really taken the lead in terms of getting the route slips printed out and making sure that we had enough for everyone who was going to be there. And right before the ride, someone approached me and they were like, just remember that leading the ride does not mean that you're out in front the entire time. It doesn't mean that everyone is drafting off of you. It means more like you are the ride coordinator. You are making sure that everyone stays safe. Everyone knows where they're going, what to do in case there's a mechanical failure, for example. And that is exactly how Ben and I were approaching it. We're up in front sometimes, but then we're sliding back to make sure we know what's going on and who's there or not there. And then it's literally like shepherding. Leading is like shepherding. Yeah.
So I'll give you another one. I'm not sure if I'm going to read them all because I don't want you to know. I'm going to implement them and see if you remember. But so last year, my other one was replace the phrase "I'm busy." Like everybody says, like I've talked about this with everything is opportunity. So and that worked really well. I never use that phrase anymore. And it's not just to get it out of my vocabulary. It's to change my mindset.
Right.
I don't want to tell myself I'm busy. I want to tell myself how many people have all of this opportunity. If I work 20 hours a day, it's my choice, but I have this opportunity that people would kill for that. So
and there's a theme there, I feel like, underneath, which is how am I contributing in a positive way? And am I engaging in the things that actually engage me and engage other people to move them in a forward direction? Yeah.
So here's one of mine for this year. I'll tell you one. I'm going to see which one I want to tell you. Let me see here. Because I don't want to tell you that one because then people will know. And they'll say, oh, Joe's working on his resolution, like in this conversation with me.
That's possible. Yeah, but it might inspire them to be looking back on theirs and pick one thing to move on.
Okay. So in my personal interactions, it's hard for me to stop thinking. So a lot of times I'm in a conversation with somebody and I'm just always not critical in a criticism sense, but a critical thinking sense. So, and a lot of times I'm just not engaged in the fun. So here's an example. My radio station in my car is tuned to NPR, right? Because I just need information.
Yep.
Well, my wife's car is turned to Bob and Tom, right? It's just all comedy, fun, living in the moment. And in my relationships with people, conversations on a day-to-day basis, I sometimes am just always in that like business coaching mode. Like what can we analyze here? I'm social psychology, business creation, marketing, and so in conversations, I just want to make sure that I am more open to just immediate, generous laughter, fun, things like that, and check my working brain at the door.
Dude, that's mine.
Yeah?
Yeah. So last year, my word, yours was lead. Mine was soften. I recognize my tendency to be very just intense and hard and like single pointed focus. Here's what we're going to do. This is the direction we need to go in. Have you thought about doing this? And it's not preachy necessarily, but it's more advicey.
Yeah.
And the only place I really noticed that sort of behavior causing difficulties was in my personal relationship.
Sure.
And just having a lot of ideas about how things needed to be and should be and ought to be. And, I'm going to manipulate you, not in a bad way, but I mean, I'm going to move you in the direction we need to go in order for us to be good.
Mm-hmm.
And I didn't like myself. He didn't like me. The relationship was not, it didn't feel rejuvenating, and it didn't feel alive, and it didn't feel easy, kind of in a positive, I trust you sort of a way. And there was not a lot of acceptance, moving in both directions, him towards me and me towards him. So soften. And boy, it made such a huge difference just from an acceptance perspective. And I don't mean that in a resignation way. It's much more openness and an honoring of what is actually here versus always focusing on what's not, right?
Totally get that. That's almost just thought for thought what's behind mine.
Right. Yeah,
year.
that's beautiful. So this year, the theme is humor and laughter. I love that we're like congealed around that. There's the similar energy that we want to imbue in everything in our conversations.
The very first words there, laugh generously.
Laugh generously, yes.
Very
yeah.
first.
So
that's weird.
I'm paying a lot more attention to how good it feels to laugh. Not that I never noticed it before. It's just become more important. And I want not to cling to it, but I want to let it be there and allow that spontaneity to come about in everyday conversations, and just to have it be more lighthearted. Because again, I have the tendency to become very rigid and hard-nosed and straight-lined. And I think what I'm recognizing just more and more is that we're all messed up and we're all crazy. And it's not something that we need to, it's not something that we always need to be thinking about, I need to improve upon and I need to change. It's more of an opening up to and a letting go of that need, because then there's room for what's already awesome here. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that's exactly why I created those two that I did this year as well.
Yeah. So,
and it does come from a spirit of helping, right? You and I are teachers, we are coaches, we are helpers. That's what we do. It's what we chose to do as professions before we even knew each other.
Exactly. Yeah.
And so we constantly almost think, that's what because people do professionally seek us out for that.
Yes.
So we stay in that role. And some people, and they should expect you to be able to just say, no, that's not what this conversation is about. So Kori.
Yeah.
Dr. Kori Propst, somebody who might be struggling already with, maybe I didn't start any resolutions and now you guys are kind of firing me up to do something, or maybe they feel like they've chosen the wrong things. They want to revamp them. How does somebody make it to the end of the year and say, man, that was really worthwhile. I did it. How
do they make it to the end of the year? I think part of it is, so if you have some sorts of resolutions and you've kind of gotten underneath to ask, what's the attitude or what's the energy or what's the feeling that I get when I engage in the actual behaviors? Once we have that in place, and it's not necessarily something that, you do it and then it's done. We're constantly reflecting upon these things. Like you said, you're keeping it right in front of you. And I am too. It literally is on the spreadsheet that I open up every single day to do other things in. Like I have my spreadsheet with the book with the different tabs. It's one of the tabs. It's also in front of my daily planner, and I have check boxes with each day for doing the things and feeling the feelings. I think it's, how do we get to the end of the year and feel like we accomplished something? Was that your question?
Well, I think you just kind of answered it there.
Yeah.
If it's just a resolution that you think of, and then maybe I'll check in on this later, it's never going to work compared to,
Agreed.
did I have a box I could check that day? What did I do today?
Yeah.
And if you want to accomplish anything, I mean, that has to be part of the process. It's not the only thing, but it has to be the core grounding element. If I'm going to speak to 3 people, every day, well, what if I only get to 2? Well, it's 7 o'clock at night. You still got time. You got to check that 3rd box.
Yeah. Well, and what is the theme? And again, the emotion or feeling underneath it. Why am I doing that? Just to check a box to say I talked to 3 people? No, because I want to contribute. And that's the other piece that I wanted to bring into this is there's these emotional themes. There's contribution, and there's awareness, and there's love and laughter and lightness. And that's how I want to feel. If I'm talking to 3 people every single day about the Diet Doc or the Mental Edge Academy or how we could work together, I feel and believe that I can contribute positively to their lives. That's going to fill me up, because it, like you said, we're teachers, we're coaches, we want to fill other people up.
And hey, on that note, you just jogged my memory about your Mental Edge Academy.
Mm-hmm.
Do you have a minute to tell people what that even is? Because anybody who just listens to us here, that may be the first time they've heard that phrase.
Yeah. So the Mental Edge Academy sounds really prestigious. I think it is.
It kind of ties right into resolution. So I'm glad you mentioned it.
Well, so what I created is this opportunity for people to be involved with me every single day, and involved with my mindset and motivation coaches within the Diet Doc who have been trained by me every single day to really capitalize on understanding themselves. Why do we do what we do? What is happiness all about? How do I move forward in my life in a way that's, going to not only benefit me, but benefit others on the planet? We have there's so many ways to engage in self-improvement, Joe. And it literally all is about change who you are. And yes, change can be incredibly important, but at the same time, a lot of us don't necessarily have the support or the connection or the camaraderie or someone to communicate with to really understand what's underneath that change, and why am I acting this way, and what are all these thoughts about, and what is this emotion that comes up when this happens or that happens and I'm triggered. So what we're doing together, and this is it's a monthly subscription service is what it is, but we're all involved in a Facebook private group where once a month we have one specific topic that we're diving into. And this month's topic is awareness. Now that can mean a whole bunch of different things, but I make it very concise and specific. And there's an activity and a practice that everyone is engaging in every single day during that month as best you can. I do a live talk every single month to really dive into the topic. And then there are typically daily posts that go out to just prompt you to maybe reflect differently or think differently or behave differently or just pay attention in a new way. And so it's creating new possibilities for people. It's helping people to see kind of, where their weaknesses are, how their personalities are directing them instead of them doing the driving. It's really been fun to see people too get excited. On the other hand, it's tough work. And these are, if you are wanting to understand yourself and not be going through life like The Walking Dead, then I think this is really important to have someone that can guide you through it.
Oh, I mean, you're speaking my language. the more I view life, it just seems to naturally fall into the two categories of the expressions of our own lives, which is
Mm-hmm.
our individual needs and,
Mm-hmm.
self-protection and work and ambition,
Mm-hmm.
and then our collective social needs, which are to be loved and contribute and be a part of something. And so it's really interesting how you start out in cognitive behavioral therapy, you're a health psychologist, and you just focus, you do so much great therapy work and coaching with people on that individual side. I love the social anthropology
Mm-hmm.
stuff. And it's just, again, I mean, here are those two sides. And,
Mm-hmm.
we ended up, doing this podcast together and running a company together. So,
Absolutely.
I'll wrap up with this just to say that I was speaking to somebody who's going to be becoming a client of ours
Mm-hmm.
in China last night.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the things I had more fun explaining to her was what you're describing, which is the fact that you have people contributing to you. You have people like Kori and me speaking right to you, your goals, what you need. Well, and you have an entire team of people around you, and you can see them going through their own journeys, and you can experience that with them. There's just nothing better. You have to have the individual voice speaking and guiding you, but you also have to be a part of a group to see them interacting in the same way. It creates the guidelines, the boundaries that we need.
Joe, there is no better way to begin to understand ourselves than by being in relationship with other people. I firmly believe that. I could have lived by myself for the rest of my life, done my thing the way I wanted to do it all the time. And just, there's so much unconsciousness in that and rigidity in that sort of way of living. And that's not me criticizing people who, don't want to partner up or whatever, but it is literally in relationship where I am challenged in the big ways to look at things differently, to gain new perspectives, to question why I'm doing what I'm doing and what triggered me in that way, and to ask the big, hard, tough, mucky, icky, messy questions of life. And then there are people who are doing that too. And so I'm not alone. I'm not trying to process it all alone in my own meager, small little brain and head. And God, it's just so valuable. I think of, so you've met my sister.
Uh-huh.
She's in a relationship now.
Oh, nice.
And I say that because she's lived alone for a very long time. She's had things the way she wants them. She gets up at the same time every morning, goes to bed at the same night, eats the same meals every single day. Her schedule's like tick, 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 tick. Everything perfect.
This could be quite interesting. We should make a reality TV show out of this.
She'd probably be very mad if she knew that I was talking about her on our podcast. So
keep this one from her.
Yeah, I got to figure out how to do that. So she's started to date this person, and I haven't actually had many conversations with her because I just haven't. I'm processing things about
you're not being the helper all the time. You're being softer. Yes.
Yes. I'll let her come to me if there are things that she wants to talk about, instead of forcing my way in and asking a bunch of questions. And but just the whole sort of the circumstances around that. And I'm hearing that she's, after work, she goes over to his house and they're watching football. And I'm like, well, that's interesting. She would never do that before. Going anywhere would mess up her entire routine. It's just now she's in a relationship and he has different preferences and ways of doing things. And they're kind of coexisting. And it's forcing her to become more adaptable and more flexible and to see things in new ways. That's what our group is doing.
Yeah, and talk about some bonus content. How do you stick to your New Year's resolutions and all that good stuff? You do it in community. You get some people around you who are doing the same thing. So,
yep.
I forgot we were actually talking about your mental health. we went a little bit over here. I guess we'll have this in the show notes where people can get some information about the Mental Edge Academy. But
sorry, Joe, I can put the link. The link is thedietdoc.com/. /the-mental-edge-academy.
We'll definitely have
You'll
to.
remember that, people.
I won't remember it in the next 5 seconds.
Look below in the notes.
But yeah, what a great way for an incredibly small fee to just have life coaching, literally. And
That's
wow,
it. Yeah.
wow, that's amazing.
Yeah. It's
All right,
super
guys,
fun
this
too.
has been long enough. This is what happens when Kori and I don't do a podcast for 3 weeks. We have to sit here and catch up
Christmas.
and just make you listen through it all. So
Thanks.
thank you so much for watching, listening.
Patience, guys.
I hope your resolutions go well. And if you need to
too.
fine tune them a little bit, think about some of the things we said.
Or contact us.
Yeah, but I'm excited about mine. Last year's were really transformative for me. So I've got some big ones this year, Kori, I love that ours kind of align a little bit.
Yeah, it's awesome. Now we can, our kind of company theme this year, Joe, was accountability, right? And authenticity.
Yep.
So I think that it weaves in really, really well. And now you and I can kind of check in with each other and be like, how you doing with that? Do you have any examples of how that came up for you? Or would this have been a time when we could have moved in that direction? Yeah.
All right, guys. Thanks as always for watching and listening. And we'll catch you next time in the Life Mastery Podcast.
Thanks, guys.